At CBR, we really enjoy thinking of awesome crossovers that we'd love to see. If the DC Universe can cross over with Mortal Kombat, then why can't we see the DCEU take on villains of the Dragon Ball universe? Some of those villains are insanely powerful and might break planet Earth, but the DC heroes are no pushovers. And what we would get are fights that really showcase gods among men. But who would come out on top? Before we count down this epic list, be sure to click on that subscribe button to get all the latest and greatest coming your way from CBR.
My, quite an impressive display. There is no other being from this universe stronger than Beerus the Destroyer.
Beerus. Dragon Ball Super started off with a bang. The direct sequel to Z, it introduced the concept of gods among men and Saiyans to viewers. Beerus may have looked like an Egyptian cat, but he's in fact a god of destruction, capable of blowing up planets with a flick of his fingers. He does this from time to time out of sheer boredom, so his unpredictability makes him even more dangerous. He sought out Goku in hopes of finding a worthy adversary, but held the Earth hostage as he failed to impress. Seeing as the DCEU, and DC in general, likes to consider many of its heroes gods already, having Beerus come to Earth in the multiverse and finding Superman, Wonder Woman, and the rest of the Justice League waiting for him instead of Goku would definitely be an interesting change of situation. Beerus is always looking for someone who he can consider his equal, as was the case with Goku. Many consider Goku and Superman to be in the same ballpark, so seeing the Man of Steel go toe-to-toe with an actual deity would be quite the showdown. He just better win though, or Lord Beerus may blow up the Earth if he's not impressed.
He knows that we're here!
Dabura. The DC Universe is known for being part of a multiverse, a reality where multiple timelines and variations of the same characters exist. If Dragon Ball were to exist in one such reality, the Demon Realm would also be something that's quite real. Enter Dabura, the king of the Demon Realm and the most intense henchman on Badibi's payroll. Despite being a henchman, many fans regard him as the main antagonist and not Badibi. Looking very devilish and inhuman, Dabura is known for being able to turn his opponents into stone, something that spells instant disaster to not only the Dragon Ball fighters, but also the would-be challengers from the DCEU. Goku states that Dabura's power level is around the same as Cell's, and the Z fighters have had their hands full with that saga. Aside from being quite strong, Dabura is also quite intelligent, being able to spot out subtle emotional cues from his opponents and leveraging that against them. Sounds like something he would exploit against Batman and Superman. Despite bearing the hatchet, these two got over their beef rather quickly, and we'd like to think that Batman could still be a bit unsure about where Superman stands.
You, Kakarot, I choose you to be the first of my victims.
Broly. For the most part, Saiyans are pretty intense individuals. A warrior race, things took a turn when Goku removed his tail and became a defender of Earth and started his own family. Vegeta eventually came around and we have a strong, if not always on the same page, team of Saiyan fighters. Then Broly showed up. A staple in the Dragon Ball universe is how long it takes some of the fighters to go on for. Those Saiyans and their respective villainous counterparts really like powering up and charging, not Broly though. He actually took out all of the Z fighters in one go by himself, wasting no time in the process too. Broly's power is on a whole nother level, being able to take a Kamehameha blast at close range and laughing it off as he got tickled. With that in mind, Broly could probably take out the 3 strongest members of the DCEU in one swoop like he did in his films. The Flash might be able to distract him long enough with his speed, but as we all know, the Saiyans are also incredibly fast as well. Flash's speed might be nothing more than a mere annoyance rather than a distraction, something that would seriously harm the Young Justice League.
I hear you're designed to use all of our techniques against us.
Perfection.
Cell. Cell was one of the biggest villains in Dragon Ball Z, being present in 3 different sagas throughout the series timeline. Just as the Android saga came to a close, we got Cell, and he was there to stay. Unlike other villains on this list so far, Cell transformed throughout his tenure as primary antagonist, but unlike Frieza or a Saiyan, actually has to absorb people to make his transformations. With that in mind, any member of the Justice League could be in serious trouble, as Cell would be looking to them to boost his power levels. Going from imperfect to perfect Cell, this villain only becomes stronger as the team gets weaker, putting them at a serious disadvantage. What's worse is that Cell has the ability to regenerate damage done to his body, making him one tough foe. While he may be a bit of a pushover in the early transformations, which makes him vulnerable for attack, his perfect form can spell trouble. In the anime, Cell can actually go beyond perfect and become super perfect, a byproduct of absorbing Goku's cells. If that's possible, then absorbing Batman, Wonder Woman, or Aquaman cells can be extremely dangerous. Here's hoping these 3 are on site from the get-go, unlike Goku.
This is Frieza's brother, you imbecile. Wake up! This is Lord Cooler, the most illustrious fighter in the universe. Soon you will be at his mercy.
Cooler. Appearing in the Dragon Ball Z film Cooler's Revenge, Cooler was the older brother of Frieza and the oldest son of King Cold. Much like his brother, he could transform his body and take on new forms, becoming more powerful as he did that. Villains like to do that in the Dragon Ball universe, don't they? Unlike most Dragon Ball film villains though, Cooler was actually pretty awesome, even in comparison to his brother. Despite being brothers, Cooler isn't a fan of his little brother. In fact, he states that he would probably have gotten rid of him at some point had the Saiyans not done it for him. Things actually got more terrifying when he shows up in his mechanical final form. While he's quite similar to Frieza in some regards, he's actually not driven by ego and is able to assess the situation more rationally than his famous sibling. Being a sound tactical being, in our opinion, is much more troublesome for the Justice League of the DCEU, as they are still pretty young and untested as a group. Letting a villain get the upper hand based off his dedication to the fight and the strategy involved makes him a credible and interesting foe.
I need to blow off some steam. I'm in a very bad mood.
You don't mind having one less plaything? Whatever you want. No use me getting in the way.
Androids 17 and 18. Off the bat, the androids stand out quite a bit on this list, as they're the only villainous characters that are synthetic beings. Not that it makes them pushovers or anything, on the contrary. The DC universe is quite used to fighting beings from other universes and criminal masterminds from Earth. While there have been robotic villains, none have made a significant impression to us yet, and none have made the jump to the DCEU. If the androids were ever to cross over to the DCEU, we'd love to see them enter our Earth and assume the role of villains for Cyborg. To make things interesting, we would find a Cyborg who questions whether he should fight other people who are, in a way, similar to him. Cyborg is more machine than man, and coming face to face with people who look more human than he is, but are in fact more robotic, may confuse the young hero. It'd be a fascinating parallel to dive into, as we haven't gotten a chance to get into Cyborg's head yet. He will be a part of the Justice League film in November 2017, but how deep his characterization will go remains unclear.
I wouldn't try to get out of it. Not unless you want me upping the body count by a few hundred more. Vegeta.
Majin Vegeta. While Vegeta may have been introduced as a primary antagonist in Dragon Ball Z, he eventually joined the Z Fighters and became a defender of Earth alongside Goku. Vegeta has since held a long and bitter grudge against Goku as he feels cheated and bested by his counterpart, who always seems to be one step ahead of him. That's why things got very interesting and intense when Babidi cast some magic on Vegeta, turning him into Majin Vegeta. The once heroic character suddenly changed, and for the worse. Majin Vegeta seemed to operate without a conscience, taking out civilians without a second thought. All his negative traits from before, including the jealousy against Goku and his pride, grew exceptionally and became dominant traits in his new personality. Compelled by anger, Majin Vegeta ended up fighting Goku for the first time in ages. Majin Vegeta is the prime example as to what happens when one of your star players goes rogue. It's hard to talk rationally with someone like this. With his cold and ruthless approach to combat, civilians would be in great peril should he present himself as a world-destroying villain in the DCEU. Like in the show, the heroes of Earth would have to remind Vegeta the importance of family to bring him back from his senses.
Stop it! Who are you? Tell me who you are first! Boo! Majin Buu! You fool, I'm Majin Buu!
Majin Buu, a childlike villain who may came off as a big softie at first, but turns into a complete sociopath by the end of his transformations. But unlike most of the other villains on this list, Buu actually gets things done. He loves destroying things, including planets, so you know he's trouble. Defeating this pink villain was nearly impossible for our heroes. Super Saiyan Goku couldn't do it, nor could he when he fused with Vegeta. It took a spirit bomb with the power of the whole planet to finally get this guy out of the picture. That puts anyone in the DCU at a considerable disadvantage. As we saw in Batman vs. Superman, Supes is something of a dividing figure. If he were to somehow learn how to do his own version of a spirit bomb, he may not have the backing of the whole planet, something that would be paramount in defeating the likes of Kid Buu. This character would not only be a terrific physical opponent for any hero in the DC universe, but would allow the characters to really dive into their own psyches and figure out where they stand in the world. How do past deeds or misfires guide these heroes in their hour of need? Are they supported, or do they stand divided?
This isn't looking good.
Stand back. Just rest. I'll take care of it from here.
Zamasu. Whenever one thinks of Dragon Ball, one tends to automatically think of Goku by extension. Thankfully for the citizens of Earth in the anime and the manga, Goku is a hero and can't be featured on this list as a villain. But that doesn't mean all is lost for those who want to see Goku showing his evil side. Zamasu, better known as Goku Black, was actually a pretty interesting and powerful adversary that got added to the mix in Dragon Ball Super. After the events of the Android and Cell sagas, the future looked pretty okay for future Trunks and company. Then Goku Black showed up. We won't spoil how or why here, just in case you're not caught up. The dub hasn't gotten that far yet, but he's a pretty satisfying character. Like Goku, Black has the ability to transform into a Super Saiyan god. Unlike his counterpart, his hair goes pink instead of blue, but cosmetics aside, both are at the same power level. Now imagine Goku at maximum capacity in god mode taking on anyone in the DCEU. Yikes, consider us fearful for Earth. We all remember the destruction at the end of Man of Steel. If Supes and Goku Black went toe-to-toe on Earth, the planet would be destroyed. Hopefully their fight would take place somewhere else.
A Super Saiyan, huh? Well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That is if we ever come to it, fool!
Frieza. We had to finish it with a classic, perhaps the most classic villain in the entire Dragon Ball canon. Frieza's been around since the early days of Dragon Ball Z and was present when Goku went Super Saiyan for the first time. He's been the antagonist in not only the Frieza saga, but more recently in the Golden Frieza saga in Dragon Ball Super. Series creator Akira Toriyama based Frieza off his childhood impressions of monsters, so you can bet there's something unworldly uncomfortable about this villain. Like a few other villains on this list, Frieza also has the ability to change his form and become more powerful, so any hero fighting him would have to readjust their strategy on the fly when he takes on his later forms. With his newfound golden form, which basically turned him into a god, his power is on a whole other level. With that kind of power and the twisted personality that made Frieza so popular in the first place, having him cross over as a primary antagonist in the DCEU just seems right. He'd cause enough trouble and be a worthy challenger for any hero, and we'd definitely pay to see that.
It's him!
Do you think the DCEU or any other DC character should be allowed to cross over with the Dragon Ball universe? Which fights do you think the DC characters would win? And which ones are easy victories for the Dragon Ball villains? How would you like to see this crossover as a film, comic, anime, or game? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. You'll get all our videos added to your playlist, and give this video a like while you're at it. Thanks for watching.